Good evening, everyone, and welcome members and the public to the late September meeting of the Planning Committee. Can I remind everyone that this meeting is being recorded, and also can I introduce the top table? I'm Chairman of the Planning Committee, Councillor Bob Cope. To my right is
Councillor Robert Duncan, Vice Chair.
Simon Hall, Staffs County Highways.
Hardeep Sharma, Solicitor to the Council. Helen Benbow, Development Management Team Manager.
Kelly Harris, Lead Planning Manager.
Mike Brown, Assistant Team Manager of Strategic Projects.
Imogen Hopkins, Senior Planning Officer.
Thank you. Can I just say to the members of the public, we expect this to be an orderly meeting. I don't want to be hearing any shouting out, else I will issue a warning. So we want to be able to hear the people for and against, and I want the meeting to be orderly. Thank you very much. So we move on to part one, which is the item number one, which is the minutes of the last meeting. The minutes, sorry. Yes, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to note that it's not showing that I gave apologies for the last meeting, where I did to Lorraine, and she sent them through for me. Thank you.
Okay, we record that?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So all those in favour of the minutes of the last meeting, can you please show? Thank you very much. Item 2, apologies. Do we have apologies? I've had 3 apologies, which is Councillor Chris Steele, Councillor Meg Barrow and Councillor Wendy Sutton. Are there any additional apologies, please? Councillor Spruce, that's 4 apologies. Thank you. Oh, are you declaring an apology for Rita? Okay, Councillor Esteltine, that's 5 apologies. Thank you. So we now move to declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest? No. Okay, it's item 4 then, which is determination of the planning applications. And as you can see on the screen, the first item that we're looking at tonight is 24/00427/OUT MEI, and it's land north of Penkridge, Stafford Road in Penkridge. So can I ask Mike to highlight the details with the application? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. So the application before us today is for outline application with all matters set access reserved for 215 dwellings. The application site is subject to this application comprises 3 agricultural fields with a total area of 11.2 hectares. It's located adjacent to the northern edge of the village of Penkridge and immediately to the north of the near completed Bloor Homes development. Currently, 1 field to the north of Chase View is shown on the photographs in front of us, which contains, as you can see, somewhat old agricultural building, which is hiding behind that hedgerow there. And the site ends just beyond that building, heading north along the A449. This is Chase View, a detached dwelling, which is to be demolished as part of the proposal. And then internal to the existing Bloor Homes development, we have Sycamore Way, which is proposed to form the primary vehicle access into the development, so continuing straight on up that road. Within the site itself, here standing just inside the field, looking along the edge of the Bloor Homes development to the east, where the A449 runs just beyond the house in the distance there, and then looking west, where you can see the West Coast Main Line and the bridge there that crosses. Again, standing in the similar position, looking north and northeast. So north we have the pond there, which is, as you can see at that point, dry but sometimes wet. And then over on the right hand side, looking over towards the A449. As evident from the location plan in front of us, the fields are located immediately to the north of the existing Bloor Homes development. To the east of the site, beyond the A449, we have the scheme we considered earlier in the month, which straddles the Severn Trent Water access there, and then beyond that, the River Penk. To the west, we have the West Coast Main Line, which runs, as you can see, north-south. To the north, we have further agricultural fields, and as discussed, to the south is the existing Bloor Homes development. So the proposal before us today comprises two elements. Firstly, specific to this application area itself, we have the beige colour blocks, which identifies areas of housing, which for this site are proposed to deliver up to 215 dwellings. Whilst all matters except access are reserved, this parameters plan, which is the same as the one we determined earlier in the month, indicates broadly where the houses would be built and where green and blue infrastructure would be located, along with active travel routes, which are the yellow dotted lines throughout the site. And then we have the play areas, which are the yellow stars, and in this case we have one in the corner there right next to the A449. The second element of this plan is the proposals for the remainder of the site. As noted within the officer report, this is an EIA development and is one of 4 overall that are currently under consideration. Obviously, we had the one earlier this month. The ES contains this parameter plan improving this application, will, as with the previous application, approve this layout going forward. Effectively, the committee are agreeing to establish the pattern of development for the wider 69.5 hectare, 1,100 dwelling development. Whilst not wanting to pick out all elements of the plan, when such is detailed within the officer report, in broad terms, the proposal includes the school land, which is purple, which is up in the St Phillips element of the scheme, the community hub, which is orange, the Riverside Park, which is pink, sports and Mugger, which are the blue, and then the allotments and orchards, which are the brown areas. Also embedded within the ES and for consideration as part of this submission is the building height plan, which again is the one we looked at earlier this month. As evidenced here, within the application site itself, we have to the central and eastern elements of the development up to 3 stories in height, which then drops as we get close to the West Coast Main Line to 2.5 stories. The sole area within the wider master plan, as you can see, where the building height achieves 4 stories, is within the community hub area. These are the active travel drawings that we looked at previously. So this plan doesn't specifically relate to the application site, rather the site that we looked at previously, but it does show the active travel route along this part of the highway. So here we have, as shown by the blue area, the route adjacent to the phase 2 site that we looked at previously. Go to the next. And moving up, so we have the roundabout, which serves the existing Bloor Homes development. So for this application, this would be continue to be used to serve the scheme, so heading off on this plan northwards, but in actuality to the west. And then obviously you can see the actual travel plan route continuing on up the road. And finally, specific to this scheme, we have towards the centre and the top of the drawing, we have the new vehicular access, which would go into the curtilage of Chase View, as shown there, which would be the secondary access to serve this scheme. So we've included this plan to provide a bit of context of regarding the proposal. So the access itself, as I noted, the primary one would go up Sycamore Way and serve the development. Now, in the interim, until the wider scheme comes online, effectively that route would just serve all of that development, or could do effectively by itself. But the highway, Sycamore Way, is incapable of accommodating both the existing development and all of the proposed 215 dwellings singly. So we have the secondary access, which we talked about a moment ago, off the A449, and until the wider scheme comes online, which will provide to the north of here further access onto the roundabout, a secondary access will be formed through the scheme, linking all of it off and down into the new secondary access onto the A449. In due course, where you can see top right corner, the link between the two areas of the development, as it were, that will be closed off and become an emergency access, pedestrian access. But in the interim, until the wider scheme comes online, it will form effectively a loop through the scheme, allowing all the homes to be served. This is because Sycamore Way by itself is only capable of accommodating up to 390 dwellings. Now there's 200 dwellings on the existing development, 215 proposed here. We go up to 415, which is 25 over. So until the wider scheme comes online, to get around that, we have this new loop formed. Okay, so back to the parameter plan. If we move on to the principle of development, we have the council's housing land supply position, as we all well know, currently standing at 1.17 years. Therefore, as per paragraph 11 of the NPPF, the council's policies within the development plan, as a consequence, can no longer be considered up to date. Therefore, housing policies within the NPPF have primacy, with the so-called tilted balance for housing-led development engaged where permission must be granted, unless areas of particular importance provide a strong reason for refusal. This could include protected SAC locations as well as impact on the ANOB. As detailed within the officer's report, the schemes impact individually and as part of the wider master plan are considered to be acceptable in both regards. Any impact of improving the scheme would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits in regard to the sustainability of the location, making effective use of the land, securing well-designed places and providing affordable homes. Working through these points, the location is considered sustainable given its proximity to Penkridge, and evidence to demonstrate such is included within the council's emerging plan, given the site is proposed within such to be a future allocation. In terms of the effective use of the land, the densities, ecological, arboricultural, drainage, flood risk and highways impact of the proposal have all been considered to be acceptable. In terms of securing well-designed places, the design guide and parameters plans have evolved through work with the applicant and the independent consultant Hyatt. In terms of the parameter master plan, this is reflective of what is proposed within the emerging plan and is considered to secure the future delivery of high quality design. Finally, in terms of delivering affordable homes, the scheme will deliver the 40% affordable homes required by policy, with the mix to be secured by Section 106 and condition to ensure such complies with the council's requirements. Given therefore the ability of the scheme to comply with all facets of the tilted balance compliance paragraph, it follows that permission must be granted. As such, the recommendation is one of conditional approval, subject to the signing of the Section 106 and unilateral undertaking and the updates from the update list. In terms of such, we touch upon that briefly. We have a response from Active Travel England, which now recommends a conditional approval for the application. The condition that is requested is further work on the submitted travel plan, such has already been required through proposed condition 22, so there's no need to amend the proposals as a consequence of that. 2 additional comments have been received from one resident who had previously commented on the proposals. The matters raised are detailed within the update list. There are not considered to be any material issues raised as a consequence of those comments, but all are addressed within the update list, as you can see. There's one correction whereby the site location plan was noted as revision D when it should have been revision G. So that's proposed to be updated. And then finally, there's a note specific to the ongoing viability analysis that is ongoing through the council's independent consultant on this, and the updates provided there. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael, for that comprehensive report. Now we have one speaker speaking against. If you could go to the lectern, I haven't got your name, unfortunately. It's a representative from St Leonard's First School. And it's Miss Claire Deary. Thank you very much. You have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Dear committee members, I am Claire Kay, head teacher of St Leonard's C of E First School, Dunstan, and I make this statement on behalf of the school, its governors and Staffordshire University Academy Trust in relation to the application. Our objection is not to development in principle, but to the unintended consequence of serious financial harm that this proposal would cause to our small rural school through the loss of sparsity funding. The school currently has 70 pupils, capacity 75, and receives approximately £40,000 per year in sparsity funding, which is crucial to our viability. If the proposed new settlement proceeds, the location of the housing within the development will alter the way sparsity is calculated. As a result, our school is highly likely to lose either all or the majority of this funding. The additional pupil numbers generated by the development cannot offset this deficit. Firstly, because there will be an alternative closer first school, which forms part of the proposals. And secondly, because our small capacity does not allow us to expand sufficiently to replace the lost funding. This represents a direct and disproportionate disadvantage to our pupils, putting the financial health and long-term future of our school at risk. We therefore respectfully request that the committee ensures a Section 106 contribution is secured from the developer to mitigate this harm. Such a contribution is one, necessary to make the development acceptable in planning terms, as otherwise the viability of an existing school is undermined. 2, directly related to the new development, since the loss of sparsity funding arises as a direct result of this new settlement. And 3, reasonably related in scope and scale, as it addresses a measurable and annual funding gap caused by the development. Without such mitigation, this development would inflict serious, long-term harm on an established local school that has served the Dunstan community for generations since 1862. We welcome further discussions with the planning officer and the developer to agree an appropriate contribution and would suggest a deferment. As to date, we have had insufficient engagement on this point, but we must be clear that in its current form, the proposal leaves our school at significant detriment. Thank you for considering our position.
Thank you, Claire, and thanks for sticking to the 5 minutes. Your comments will be noted by the members of the committee. I'm sure someone will ask the question of the officers. Thank you. So next we have the applicant speaking, which is Mark Rose. Thank you, from Planning and Design Limited. You also have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of this application. The national housing crisis is widely recognised, as are the severe and entrenched socio-economic consequences that have arisen for all sections of society, and successive governments have set out a national policy imperative to significantly boost the supply of new homes across the country. This application seeks to bring forward the delivery of 215 new homes in the second phase of the proposed allocation site to the north of Penkridge, as identified in the Council's emerging local plan. The proposal to allocate the site is a reflection of its suitability for development. The site is well related to Penkridge, which is a Tier 1 settlement with a wide range of essential day-to-day services. It also lies outside of the green belt that covers most of the district, and the robust and comprehensive suite of submitted site assessments have confirmed that it is free of any insurmountable constraints. Following the initial identification of the proposed allocation in December 2022, Bloor Homes and the Council have worked very closely together to ensure the delivery of a high quality development. The result is a well-considered proposal that would realise a truly sustainable, well-planned and high-quality new neighbourhood of Penkridge, supported by the infrastructure required to meet the day-to-day needs of residents. The houses will be accessed via an extension from the successful Bloor Homes scheme to the south and from a new priority junction on the A449. And access into the wider allocation site to the north will also be provided in due course. Extensive pedestrian and cycle paths will run through and around the scheme, providing a connection to the bus stops that are located nearby on the A449 and the new signalised crossing that will be provided as part of the strategic active travel link that will run all along the A449 into the village centre. That will allow residents to benefit from safe and convenient access to the services within the village centre, and will in due course also link to the facilities that will be provided in the wider allocation site. The new homes will have an attractive green landscape setting. The vast majority of the existing mature trees and hedgerows that frame the site will be retained and supplemented with substantial new tree planting, notably providing a wide landscape buffer to the railway line to the west. The generous public open space provision will include an area of allotments and a new play space in an accessible location where the pedestrian and cycle paths converge and provide links to the wider area. Elsewhere, the attractive green spaces will provide opportunities for informal recreation and socialising. The landscape planting, alongside the provision of ecology ponds and sustainable drainage features, provide an opportunity to improve habitats. In doing so, the development will achieve in excess of the required 10% biodiversity net gain. The scheme will deliver 215 new homes across a range of sizes, types and tenures, including 40% affordable housing provision in line with the policy in the adopted local plan. That will make a significant contribution to addressing the area's market and affordable housing needs and the acute 5-year housing land supply shortfall to provide housing opportunity and choice for local people. These are very significant benefits of the scheme. The development would also result in job creation, resident spending in the local economy and council tax revenue. That will help to ensure that Penkridge remains a sustainable village to the benefit of the existing and future residents. Indeed, the scheme will make a significant contributions to local infrastructure, including education and health facilities, community and sports facilities, bus services and cycle infrastructure. In conclusion, the planning application proposals would clearly constitute a sustainable development that would result in a number of significant benefits, not least by providing much needed affordable and market housing, support for local community facilities, and a substantial area of accessible and attractive public open space, including the new play area and allotments. Moving forward, Bloor Homes remain committed to working alongside the council to secure the delivery of the much needed housing and create a great new neighbourhood for Penkridge. This is a significant step in achieving that, and therefore we'd encourage the members to support the officer's recommendation to grant planning permission. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. So members, it's over to yourselves to ask questions and debate. But firstly, I go to the local member, which is Councillor Harper Wallis.
Thank you, Chair. Just to have it on record, I do live close to the application, as everyone well know, but I've come into this meeting with an open mind to hear both sides and also to hear the officer's report. I think the long and short of it is this decision for this application has been made long before this meeting. First by this council in the allocation of the emerging local plan for this site, and then at a government level with the housing targets, the changes to the NPPF, and also finally by the applicant, who has also shown that they're willing to take applications that go to refusal to appeal. So all of these factors we should pay account of today when we're discussing, but I'd like to hear kind of what other members have to say. But this is our chance to, I guess, take some control back and maybe scrutinise and ask the right questions, perhaps resolve and ask officers around the school in Dunstan and what could be done there. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Chapman, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sure I'll come back on this, but I just want to say I note that what Councillor Harper Wallis has said, but I would like to say that with regard to the Bloor Homes agent and the amenities that he outlined for us, and thank you for that. I have taken on board Mrs. Claire Key's problem with regard to the education of the children, which is paramount to the future of our country's future. So what I will ask is, will section 106 be taking into account the continued educational needs delivered by St Leonard's CE First School? I'd like to know a little bit more about that, please.
Who wants to take that? Michael?
Thank you, Chair. For you. The matter of sparsity payments and the this application is dealt with in paragraphs 5.11.12 through to 5.11.17 of the officer's report. Essentially, it is an issue that we've noted. Unfortunately, what we can't require a developer to do is to mitigate their harm, i.e. pay money towards the provision of the school within the scheme, and then require them to also then turn around and mitigate for harm elsewhere. That's unreasonable to require two lots of payments. They need to mitigate for their harm, which is in this case is the uplift in students, and therefore address that through the provision of the new school within this scheme. Now, in terms of the sparsity payments, we obviously brought this to the attention of the highways, to the Education Authority, the County Council. Their response, essentially, which is referenced within the report, is to state that sparsity funding is a complicated calculation undertaken by the Department for Education, and eligibility and amount awarded changes each year depending on the children who live in the local area and the school census. Staffordshire County Council does not calculate this figure or receive detailed workings of the calculations of the DFE. They then continue to advise that they can't object to the planning application on the basis that it may impact on sparsity funding. That's essentially where we're at. So we have considered it. We've discussed it with the County Council. we're not at a point where we believe it would be reasonable to require additional payments from the applicant to address both their direct and indirect impact. It's direct impact only. Hope that helps.
Thank you, Michael. Do you want to come back, Councillor Chairman? Okay. Any more speakers, members? Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Chair. Several points. Page 22 of the 280-page document. 7 Trent, the previous comment to the 13th of August 2025, 19th of March 2025 and November 24. They have no objections. However, they do state that there's no capacity at the foul drainage treatment works to accommodate this development. They do state that, and to what I've been hearing, they are asking for a delay on the development for 6 months to be able to resolve that issue. I don't know whether that is true, and I have concerns with the foul drainage system, because if it doesn't go somewhere, where is it going to go to? My other point, before I lose this page, is Network Rail. It does state in the document that they need to dialogue with Network Rail as a landowner or through the council. Have they done that with Network Rail? Because there are concerns from Network Rail's statement. On a further point is, I have brought this up with what's his name today. The map that is showing on the system of the district council shows, let me just get to it, shows on my map where I've got up now, the master plan, the schools on the left hand side, not on the right hand side. So, you know, if that has been out in the public domain for so long, and now that is the new plan, when was that portrayed to everybody? Because if that hasn't been done long enough, they haven't had clear sight of any changes. That shows a disparity to the public to see factual things, which I'm concerned, because, as I say, mine shows playing field, junior pitch, school and buildings on the left hand side by the first island, with community hub on the right hand side. You know, my concerns are, what is the factual points? And my last point, Chair, is where the building that is going to be knocked down, there is a separate entrance. Why hasn't that incorporated in the development? Why does it need a separate entrance within, what, 10 metres of an island, when it could come onto straight onto the main route? That's all.
Michael, are you answering those questions, or shall I pass to Highways? Okay, hang on one moment.
For you, Chair. In terms of 7 Trent, there's a long story there, but the outcome of which was they initially were requesting a Grampian style condition to be attached to the permission. We were broadly happy with that, but they needed to provide further details to us as the council to demonstrate that they'd met all the tests in terms of putting a condition on. So they needed to show us when the upgrades were going to be built and what number they could accommodate currently. So we pushed them on that and asked them for the detail. They never provided with it, and then ultimately they then changed their mind and didn't request the Grampian style condition anymore. So there is likely to be an issue there. I'm not going to lie about that, because that's why we were broadly going to agree to the Grampian style condition. But when the consultee tells us they do not need that condition, it becomes very difficult for us then to go ahead and apply a condition. So we have ultimately got to a point where we've had to say, fine, we'll just put a standard give us drainage details conditions on. So that's where we are with that one. In terms of Network Rail, there is contact there. They have started the process of, you know, talking directly to Network Rail. It's tricky because obviously, whilst we have broad details, as we can see in front of us on the screen here, there's no specifics yet because it's an outline application and they want the specific detail. So as the applicant moves through into reserve matters, it will then be picked up and you'll get that more tighter grain of detail. You'll note in the officer's report there are a number of conditions specific to Network Rail matters picked up within there, but exact details will come through as the reserve matters. And I will pass to Helen to deal with the other.
Helen?
Through you, Chair, thank you. Just to follow up on the point about Severn Trent, we have had it confirmed to us by them that this pumping station is part of their upgrade programme due to be completed by 2027. So we have had that confirmation, aside from the situation with the Planning Commission. I just wanted to touch on your point about the master plan. The one that you see in front of you is the master plan and parameters plan that forms part of the ES, it's EIA development that you're looking at today, and that's what links all of the sites together. There have been variations on this master plan, all of which have been made public, all of which have been consulted on. This one, ironically, is the one we started with. We've kind of gone full circle and had a few varieties. But in answer to your question, this has been publicly available, has been consulted on for the requisite requirement of time as a minimum, and we have received comments on it. So I think it's fair and very easy for me to say that the public have had the opportunity to view it, not taking away from the fact there were some varieties, but it is clear in the chronology on the internet web page that you can access. It is publicly accessible, and that is the one, as you can see on the screen this evening, members, that we will be linking to the environmental statement. Your final point, I think, was about highways, and I will refer to.
It's two-part, Helen. The small development, which is just on the edge of phase one, it's edged basically right by where the house is going to be demolished. That has got a single access onto the road, just right on the left-hand corner. Why is that? Why can't it be incorporated as an access straight through the development if, as you say, all those are going to be new houses where previously it isn't?
Okay, question to you then, Simon.
Oh,
Sorry, which access were we talking about? So you're saying, is it too close to the island? Well, the access itself, I think because I think they were struggling to get the access through the rest of the site to that parcel of land. But in terms of the access, if it's part of the application, we would have assessed it as to make sure it was suitable. And if you remember last time when we were talking about this corridor, I think having punctuating accesses along the 449 will help to keep those vehicle speeds down, because you're going to have that activity of people turning into and out of various accesses along that route, as you would expect on a more urban environment. So the spacing of the junction doesn't give us a cause of concern in terms of where it's coming out. But
yes, you can.
In principle, I can take your point, but it seems to be that little enclave is being segregated from the rest of there's no active travel area through it, there's no access through it, it's all just one section, and it's not incorporated as part of the old development. It's a little enclave of how many houses, I do not know. It would be there 20, 15, 10, I do not know.
In terms of why it's an enclave, I'm not 100% sure, to be perfectly honest, but in terms of its connectivity, as you say, it's only a reasonably small length of a corridor, and it's got pretty good straight access onto the 449, which is where we're going to be building the active travel corridor. So although it might not integrate to the west of it, it's going to integrate to the main sort of network that's going to connect it to the rest of the other developments that are going on, such as the school, the hub, etc.
Wouldn't you perceive that having a further average of 1.5 cars per household or 1.2 cars per household, 20 cars if it's 10 houses would be more suitable going through to an island than coming off a further access.
It doesn't, in terms of suitability, yeah, it probably is better to put them through to one access, but it doesn't, would be better, but it doesn't give us cause of concern, if that makes sense. Yes, it would be better to put them through the roundabout that eventually link through to the Spine Road. However, what's proposed there is not something that we would offer a refusal on as it's submitted.
Councillor Kelly, you've now had an explanation from Highways. Can I move across to Michael who wants to speak? Thank you.
Through you, Chair. In terms of the linkages, so that area is going to contain approximately 25 dwellings, well, up to 25 dwellings, shall we say. So obviously, as you can see along the northern edge, we've got an existing hedgerow. So we can't really take that out because of the ecological benefit of such. So that's why it looks a little bit segregated from the remainder, because there's the ecological corridor that needs to be retained along that edge. Now, in terms of active travel routes, what it does have along the, as Simon mentioned, along the A449 at the frontage, and then along the northern edge of the scheme, we also have running to the south side of the hedgerow. There's also an active travel route along there, and then it will go up, as you can see, where it bursts through the hedgerow and link onto that and then onto the footpath to the northern side. So from a highways point of view, going forward in the long term, when that access between the two is closed off just for and only open for emergency accesses, yes, it would be solely served through and become sort of a cul-de-sac, shall we say, 25 dwelling cul-de-sac. But in sustainable transport terms, it will be quite well linked. So it's got active travel to the north and active travel to the east as well. So hopefully that explains sort of roughly where it's at.
You want to come back again? Okay.
Thank you. On that, you clarify one point that it's going to be 25, so that makes it nearly 58 cars that could come off that side, which is to me quite a lot of cars.
Okay, we move it on then. Speakers, Councillor Adams, thank you.
To say that, mentioned this 2 weeks ago, as a parish council, we've met with developers on a regular basis, and they have tried to work with us. We obviously know the government want these houses, and our viewpoint is that we've got to make it the best that we can if we're going to have them. So I must say, you know, we've had discussed various issues over the year, active travel, where the school's going to go, where they should have a community hub, and we have been quite in detail about different houses, etc. And I would like to say that they have really worked with as well and sorted some of our issues out that we've learned about.
Thank you for that comment. Further speakers? Councillor Harper Wallis.
Thank you, Chair. Can I hear the officers' comments around Active Travel England's calls for a deferral?
Michael.
For you, Chair. That was their original response. Their updated response was within the update list. They now offer conditional approval response, which basically states that they're happy, subject to the travel plan being amended to further reinforce the use of active travel measures effectively. Such is dealt with via, I think it's condition 22 off the top of my head, which already requires, notwithstanding the existing travel plan, an updated travel plan, because my colleagues over here in Highways had requested that condition already anyway, because they wanted a few tweaks to it. So it will be addressed via condition, yes. Hopefully that helps.
Thank you, Chair. And just a follow-up question for Highways, and I'm assuming this is handled by condition in full. But if we could go to the full site map view, we have obviously the 3 roundabouts there. As residents of Penkridge will know, that whole route will get clogged up if the M6 is closed. So I guess more from the Highways perspective there, how concerned are you with people utilising the through road and Sycamore Road as like a rat run to effectively skip those two roundabouts and that traffic? And also, what measures would you be able to put in place to stop that from happening?
Simon.
In terms of circumnavigating the 449, I think if you mapped it out in terms of the length and everything else, you wouldn't. I don't think you're going to gain a great deal by rat running through there, as you say. But as part of the reserve matters application, and when we see the actual roads through the site, if you look on the existing development that's taken place, there's various roads tables, etc., to control the speeds, because most of the residential streets will have a design speed of 20 mph, so that will be enforced by various features as well, which is what you currently see on the existing Bloor site at the moment. So in terms of the rat running, I don't think you'd gain anything by it. If anything, it would probably slow your journey up, and there is features in there that will discourage people from doing it. That the spine road itself is there to serve the development, and you get to gain very little by diverting from the 449. In terms of saying about the M6 closure, the closure itself, or in terms of national highways closures, are not, the occurrence of them, the frequency of them is a lot rarer than people think. What does happen though is, I think if there is crashes and etc., it's not a diversion or a closure of the M6, it's people diverting because things like sat-nav, etc. So it's not an official closure of the M6, which don't happen unless there's specifically works on.
You mentioned something interesting. You said that the residential roads would be 20s. Is that correct? And that as is the current law?
The design speeds, yes. All residential roads now are design speeds 20 mph. So that's why you'll see on the existing site, we've got traffic calming. So as you come through off the roundabout, there's the junctions as you go through what was always envisaged being the spine road, has got traffic calming features on it to reinforce that.
So that you don't need signposting for 20s then, is that? Because I live on the estate. I didn't realise that it was, I just thought it was like 30, but people were being sensible. But do they need to have the signpostage to be 20s?
It's whether you change the speed limit, because a lot of new roads, the different criteria from if you're changing the speed limit on an existing road to a new road. The design speed is what we're talking about. So the design of the road itself, in terms of your forward visibility and the geometry of the road, is designed to be to a 20 mph. And because it's designed for that, we need features in there to keep the speeds to that. So if you're going, say, around the slow bend, the visibility that afforded to you driving forward is what you would see on 20 mph rather than 30. Because a lot of the guidance out there saying if you afford somebody greater visibility, you're going to speed. So that will be restricted down to what you'd expect to see for a 20 mph.
Sorry, just one clarifying, just to make sure I've understood this. They're not legally 20s, they're designed, they're 30s because there's no signage. They're 30s, but if you were to drive 30, you're being a bit dangerous, you'd probably get pulled over for that, right? It's the idea, and it's that you're putting traffic calming measures like the humps that are in Sycamore Way. And I'm assuming those would extend into that road as well, like we'd continue the traffic, or is that for, I guess my original question, is that part of the conditional?
Any of the roads on any reserve matters application would be dealt with at that stage, but as you quite rightly said, we would carry on the existing practice of what we've done on that spine road. It might not just be raised tables, there could be other features in there as well, which is things like we say where would provide frontage access, etc. So vehicles coming in and out of the drives, etc. would also be slowing, and maybe possible narrowings or build outs, etc., especially where you're going to get your active travel corridors passing. So there's a whole host of things that would go into that as when we see the reserve matters.
I'd like to move it on now. Okay. Any more speakers? Councillor Ashley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wonder if I could refer to 5.6.53, off-street car parking. It's quite clear what the allocation is for properties on the estate. For 2 and 3 bedroom houses, 2 parking spaces for 3 spaces for 4 or more. It goes on to say that the level of provision is achievable for off-street parking within this scheme, albeit that the exact level and configuration of provision will evidently be confirmed and secured through resultant reserved matter submission. Now, I think, Mr. Chairman, most of us realise and are aware that our estates, new ones and even older ones, tend to be completely congested with motor vehicles parked on pavements, halfway on the road and the pavement. And there's no doubt, even old, as I said, older ones, even relatively new ones, are still suffering from that congestion. I wonder if this particular item can perhaps be expanded to say where would or how could additional off-road car parking be achieved within the site? Because I can't see anything on the plan where there could be room or designated. I know you have to have off-road parking for facilities, the schools, the allotments and so on. But I'm talking about off-road parking in our normal streets, because there's little doubt what we agree is the necessary requirement for car parking. I'm afraid it is not good enough nowadays. So could it be expanded how additional off-street parking could be achieved?
You're taking that, Michael?
Through you, Chair. Obviously, we have to comply with adopted policy, which is detailed within the report there, which is Appendix 5 of the core strategy, and the details are as evidenced. To require more or more than that would be unreasonable, effectively. We can request such from the applicant. Obviously, details will come through as part of the reserve matters submissions. But there's a balance to be had there because, as you can see, there's been a lot of work put into the active traffic measures within this scheme to try and discourage the use of cars. I appreciate in the real world that may or may not work, but that is the attempt that has been occurred here. There's a lot of time, money and effort gone into these active travel measures, and we have to hope that they work. And therefore, I can't see how we could justify requiring something that's above and beyond policy requirement. Have that.
You want to come back? Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Within the plan, it does state, in fact, that there will be no parking for drop-off pupils at the proposed new school, on the basis that people will be more inclined to walk to the school and drop off their children. Now, I'm sure most of us know from experience that does not happen. And I think it's a hopeful gesture that we're going to expect parents to take children to school, particularly when the weather's fine. And you tend to get, and it happens in my patch, where outside of school, at school, going in time and obviously leaving, the place is rammed with cars. Now, quite honestly, I think really common sense ought to prevail. We are just not tackling this particular problem. Then I suggest we've got the developers here, if they can take a look at this situation again.
Ellen, you would say. Okay.
Yeah, through you, Chair. Yeah, and we recognise obviously the issue with school drop-off particularly. I mean, I know we've strayed away from additional parking within the residential streets, but I can only really echo what Mike has said. The active travel routes are approved by Active Travel England. They will encourage alternative methods of transport. The truth is, Councillor Ashley, if you provide parking and drop off at a school, it will be used and it will be at capacity within moments. Then you have to expand that, then that is at capacity. the push for active travel routes discourages the use of cars within that framework of that central government policy that's filtered down to local government policy. So to book against that wouldn't really be an appropriate way of building a development forward. You'll see from the master plan that you've got in front of you here, there's an awful lot of work gone into the way that the scheme links together from each phase, links to the central area with the school, where the local shops will be, and it's a comfortable journey for people either on a bike, on scooters with children, or on foot. To start to then integrate additional parking books against that, the whole spirit of what it's trying to achieve with a wider master plan site. So we do have to be mindful of that. Of course, within a real world context, we understand that, you know, people will be dropping their children at school on their way to work. But the more you provide, the more it will be used and the more it will become at capacity. And we have to look at alternative methods when we're providing new developments like this. I don't know if, Simon, you've got anything you want to add to that?
Thanks, yeah. In terms of each parking for each unit, like I say, it is towards, but the National Planning Policy Framework was adjusted a couple of years ago because I think the planning inspector were fed up of seeing planning appeals that were revolving around parking numbers. I've sat on a few appeals regarding parking, unless you can prove there's a real safety issue. So in terms of, I take over what you're saying about people parking on the pavement, that unfortunately is only enforceable by a police officer. It is actually illegal. So the planning, well, it's for as good as it does, it can't actually enforce other people's legislation. So from that point of view, if there is issues with illegal parking, then it's the police to sort it out. Unfortunately, we can't resolve that via the planning process. And as I said, the NPPF talks of maximum standards now rather than minimum. Just getting back to what the school, I know the school's not going to be on this side, but having built, I'd say, in excess of 30 schools, we've tried parking, not having parking, having a mixture of parking. To be perfectly honest, it doesn't really work. Even if you provide parking, parents don't want to go into the car park because they feel that they get trapped. So what you'll find is sometimes the car park won't get used, they'll abandon it. Schools don't take a responsibility for it because they don't want that extra liability of anything happening on the car park. So it doesn't get managed, and what happens is people just won't use it. The whole thing, the best thing that we found we can do is to work with the schools and work with our active travel sort of partners to try and encourage people to access the site on foot, because best will in the world, if you do drive to that site, you're not going to get out of that site as quick as you would if you walk to and from it and then just walk back home and pick your car if you've got to go to work. So there's a lot of design going into this now in terms of how we're going to do it. And in some areas, we're actually shutting or looking to try and shut streets off at school to make them school streets. We haven't got a proposal like that on this site, I'll add, but we are actually trying to kick out the cars, because the last place you want to see a load of cars is right next to a school, because you're talking about all the congestion, cars parking up close to school, which isn't good for people to cross. And you've also got the issue with pollution right next to a school, which isn't a good idea if you're putting 30, 40 car parking spaces right next to a school. So it's not something we want to encourage these days. The best way to solve this problem, we've found, is working with the schools and our active travel partners to resolve the issue, to provide these facilities and make people use them. Because once I get what you're saying about the weather, but once you get to that school and you realise it's as easy to walk to it, a lot easier than it is to get in a car, drive there, drop off and then try and get out the road, you will realise that the option to get to and from that site, the best way would be on foot.
Thank you, Simon. Okay, Councillor Harper Wallace.
Yeah, just to add to the conversation, I think it's important here to compare apples with apples. You know, we've all got the experience of people parking outside of our schools, but those schools, when they were built and even like relatively new, didn't have this level of detail in terms of the active planning. There's a lot of like science and research and literature that's gone into kind of, you know, stopping people from parking outside of schools. I just think when we're talking about whether providing car parking or not, we have to compare like for like in this regard, and that wouldn't be doing that here.
Thank you. Any more speakers? Councillor Kelly.
My last one point, Chair, is just for our officers the retention ponds, they all feed into the River Penk, is that correct? And is there any contribution as a 106 to the flood element of that sort of issue? Because all the developments will create a lot of water because more concrete, more surface to cover. That water's got to go somewhere. Is there a contribution to the County Council's flood defence department?
Michael.
Through Chair. In terms of the Suds ponds, the County Council flood team will ultimately, when we get the detail, work through that. But overall, what they'll be required to deliver is something that falls below Greenfield runoff rates. So it will be better than as is in terms of the amount and rate of which the water comes off the site. So yeah, that'll be addressed via conditions and the reserve matters application. As you state, most the water itself will run off largely into the River Penk ultimately, but it'll do so at a rate which is less than the existing Greenfield rate. That makes sense.
Okay, any more speakers? No, so we have no more speakers, so I'll go to the vote. So the recommendation is for approval. All those in favour of approval, please show. Any, have you counted? Yeah. Any against? Any abstentions? One. Therefore, that application is approved. Thank you. Sorry. Right, we go to the next application, which is 23 / Somebody got a phone on? Where's that noise coming from? All right, I thought it was in the chamber. Right, I'll start again. I thought I was hearing things. Right, the next application is 23 / 01080 / OUT MEI, and it's land at junction 13 of the M6, Stafford Dunstan. And Ellen will outline the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This application seeks outline approval for employment development for up to 60,763 square metres of industrial and logistics floor space. Vehicle access would be created from the A449. The site is located off junction 13 of the M6 and is located outside the Greenbelt in the open countryside, but within the community of Dunstan. The site has the A449 to the west and School Lane to the south. The site is a proposed allocation in the emerging local plan. The local plan has been endorsed by the council and submitted for examination. That examination is now underway. This site has been included in principle as it contributes towards the accepted need for additional employment land in South Staffordshire. As outlined extensively in the officer report, the principle of the development before members is considered as such to be acceptable. In terms of technical matters, consideration has been given and there are no objections from county or national highways, the council's ecologist, tree or heritage specialists, the local lead flood authority or the environmental health team. It is acknowledged that there will be some landscape and heritage harm as a result of the proposed development. This has, however, been appraised by the council's independent landscape architect. The conclusion was that the findings of the landscape visual impact assessment were supported and that subject to appropriate mitigation, the landscape harm is on balance acceptable. This is further secured by the parameters plan that restricts the building heights. This is of course weighed in the plan in balance against the benefits of the scheme, which include job creation, like 880 jobs, and further benefits which include, but are not limited to, school drop-off area and the provision of public open space. Subject to the conditions proposed in the officer report, recommendation is for approval of this outline scheme where access only is considered, subject to the signing of the legal agreement. Just take members through the site photos. So what you can see here in front of you is the Dunstan Farm Junction. That's the view from the A449 on the left-hand side and back towards the 449 on the right-hand side. We are then on the 449 again, looking west on this left-hand photo towards the site itself and towards the bridleway access. And on the right-hand side here, you have the 449 looking in the direction of the M6 motorway junction. This is a view from within the site again, taken from the bridleway area. This is looking northeast and northwest. And then a view from the existing bridge again, which denotes the rights of way across the site. One looking back towards the A449 and then another towards the bridge itself. The final photographs this evening are of School Lane. So this shows the school within the proximity of the site, the neighbouring dwelling adjacent to the site, and then the School Lane itself. This shows the area outlined in red here, which denotes the application site. You'll see there's a strip to the left-hand side of the railway line there. That's on the other side of the West Coast Mail line. The buildings themselves would be on the right-hand side there in that red line. The blue line denotes land under the same ownership as the applicant. And then the final plan this evening to table is the parameters plan and shows a broad master plan of the area and the way it's likely to be laid out. But to be clear, it's an outline approval that we're considering this evening with access only considered. Recommendation is for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ellen. We have one speaker speaking against, which is Rob Stubbs from the Dunstan Local Plan Development Committee. Rob, can you go to the lectern? You've got 5 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm the spokesperson for the Dunstan Local Development Group against this application, representing the residents and commercial parties, concerned parties locally for the proposed development. Firstly, I'd just like to begin with a rhetorical question. Is this proposed development a need or just a commercial want? It's a question that should be balanced against the impact of people's lives, living standards, farming, and the environment. So, to the local impact, the proposed development will border directly behind a row of village houses, the small village school, St Leonard's, and Dunstan Village itself. The village school has views across open farm countryside, as we've seen, and perfect place for children to be taught and develop. I know, and I'm sure everybody in this room would love their children to go to a school like St Leonard's. Instead, the proposed development will create a large bund blocking the entire view and replacing it with large industrial buildings, operating 24/7, increasing noise, air pollution and light pollution. A major change in anyone's book, especially children's. The land is described, as Grade 2, very good quality agricultural land, the best and most valuable. The Farm to Fork Summit in 2024 stated land of this quality should be maintained for UK farmers to feed the nation. This area is an area of natural outstanding beauty, looking across the valley to the village of Coppenall to the north, who will have the reverse view of this proposed development. Importantly, this land, as stated previously, is not currently in the local development plan and should not be, in our opinion. It is non-strategic and there is ample and surplus capacity currently locally. Transport and parking. The plan states that the proposal will add some 800 new jobs over a 3-shift 24/7 system. Transport links are very low in the area currently. So roughly 300 jobs will not be a major financial incentive to any more businesses on a three times a day process, any more bus routes on a 3-day process. Therefore, more cars will come to the area. Experience shows that car shares do not deliver the required benefits, especially in a rural situation over a 24/7 3-shift system. Additionally, there are concerns of parking on the verges in Dunstan Village on School Lane, which already has bottlenecks at times of the day when school children, ironically, coming out of school. Turning on and off School Lane in Dunstan onto the 449 will be an increased hazard and safety risk, as it already is. Additionally, heavy vehicles will further increase this risk coming off and getting onto the M6, which is very close by. The A449 is a motorway diversion route on occasions, mostly for when there's accidents on the motorway and sometimes on the M30 and M12 junction. This is an actual fact. In summary, please consider, by approving this initial phase, will immediately change the land forever. It will change it. It will have a major impact on the village, the local community, the school and its young children. It will affect the wildlife and ecological system. It will impact and increase traffic and the safety risk. We will all lose land as best and most valuable for farming. This land is for farming, not for industrial use, in our opinion. It is not in the local development plan and should not be in the future. So, my opening comment, rhetorical question, is this really a need or a commercial want? This proposal we believe should not be approved until at least a complete plan and detailed full site application is presented in its entirety, not just an initial phase. Thank you for the opportunity for us to present to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. So next we have the applicant speaking, which is Michael Davis from Savills. You two have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair, members. Thank you for the opportunity for allowing us to speak in support of this scheme this evening. Endurance is one of the UK's largest owners and developers of commercial property, with a proven track record of constructing and managing manufacturing and logistics space. Endurance Park in Staffordshire will deliver a purpose-built employment destination adjacent to junction 13 of the M6 and on a site that is identified for employment development in the Council's emerging local plan. The proposals provide a strategic opportunity on available land in a district which is otherwise largely constrained by the Greenbelt. The application site is not Greenbelt land. The intention is that the development will be built speculatively, delivering employment space and thereby making an early commitment to investment in the district. This demonstrates Endurance confidence in the district for attracting inward investment, whilst also providing market-leading spaces for existing South Staffordshire businesses to expand and grow. Endurance proposals provide a different offer to the West Midlands Interchange Scheme. Endurance will build mid-sized industrial and logistics units, and these will range from around 50,000 square feet to 170,000 square feet, compared to the larger strategic scale industrial units that the West Midlands Interchange will offer, which will range around 200,000 square foot to upward of 1 million square foot. The proposals have benefited from extensive discussions with South Staffordshire, Staffordshire County Council officers, National Highways and local stakeholders. With the exception of the parish councils, there are no outstanding objections from statutory consultees. An illustrative layout has evolved throughout the pre-application engagement, responding to feedback whilst working within the technical constraints of the site. The building heights shown in the application address market requirements for the scale of units proposed, for which there is a strong demand. The submitted parameter plans control maximum building heights and footprints for the development and will be controlled by condition. Detailed landscape assessment work has been carried out to support the application. We are pleased to provide comfort that the site does not lie with any strategic or local viewing corridors, and the design and landscape has been scrutinised rigorously by the council and its independent landscape assessor. The benefits of the scheme are wide-ranging and significant. A range of ecological and biodiversity enhancements will be provided and will deliver a BNG or biodiversity net gain well in excess of 10%. The scheme will have strong sustainability credentials, with all units meeting a minimum BREEAM excellence standard. A new access will be provided from the A449 away from the centre of Dunstan, along with footpath and cycle improvements to the north of junction 13 of the M6 and south of Stafford, as well as providing improvements to bus stop facilities. Both the County Council and National Highways have confirmed that they have no objections to the scheme, subject to conditions being met. HGV vehicles associated with the developments will be restricted from using and routed away from School Lane. Working with St Leonard's School, Endurant proposed to provide a new drop-off area to address the school's current shortage of available parking spaces, reducing on-street parking problems and providing a safe environment for children to be dropped off and collected. This will be secured via a Section 106 agreement to accompany the permission. And just to add, the difference between that and a newly planned development is this school has been here for quite some time and was not planned like the previous application. Alongside this, a new 2-hectare public open space will be created for the local community use and which will link into existing public rights of way. Moving on to the benefits, there are a number of these, including around £697,000 per annum of business rates to South Staffordshire, cumulative business rates retained in South Staffordshire of circa £7 million, and then a whole plethora of education, jobs and skills opportunities arising from the development. As such, these sustainable proposals provide significant economic, environmental and social benefits, which will significantly outweigh any adverse effects. In conclusion, subject to securing permission, development is scheduled to start on site in 2027, with practical completion in 28 and phase 2 in 2030. And following this timetable, new jobs could be delivered as early as 2031. Unlike many promoters and developers, Endurant will retain ownership of the site, ensuring a long-term partnership with the council and continued maintenance of the site and ongoing investments in years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Before I go to members, Ellen wants to make a few pointers. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just to draw members' attention to the update list, that was all in terms of additionality. Just to say that you need to note that there's been a change to the name of the applicant from when it was originally submitted. There are a list of conditions that have been updated and amended in agreement with the applicant. Nothing fundamental, just around phasing of the development and when that will come forward. So that's important to note. And just to say that there was a further letter of correspondence received on Thursday, the 18th of September from Mr. Paul Windmill. Some of the points that were raised have already been addressed in the report, but I just want to point your attention to paragraph 6.3 of the report should refer to paragraph 86E rather than 86D. That was a typo on our part. And paragraph 6.12 needed to be updated. And for the purposes of clarity, I'm going to read this out verbatim, please. Given the above assessment and the positive weight attributed to the delivery of a proposed allocation new employment site in South Staffordshire, it is recommended that this application is in general conformity with the relevant NPPF policies when taken as a whole. Although the proposal conflicts with the adopted development plan, which is considered to be out of date, the material benefits of the scheme outweigh this conflict. The outline application proposals are considered to represent a sustainable proposal with significant economic, environmental and social benefits, which are collectively considered acceptable in the balancing process and is therefore recommended for approval. Just wanted to make those points of clarity for the benefit of members and is with you on the update list. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ellen. So firstly, we go to the local member, which is Councillor Harper Wallace.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so I guess I'll just kick off with the fact that I'm minded to refuse this application around four 5 core reasons, and then during tonight I'll ask questions and evaluate my reasoning with the officers and then come to a final conclusion. Those 4 reasons will be around prematurity, failure to prioritise previously developed land, loss of best and most versatile land, the heritage harm, and unsustainable travel patterns. But yeah, no, I think I'll leave it there because most of my talking will be through questions to the officers.
If you're going to go for refusal, I'll have to come back to put more.
Absolutely, yeah.
On there.
That's what I plan to do
But
tonight.
what you're asking, that we go to all the members first and then come back to you. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Members, speakers, please. Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to ask for some clarity about the first slide. And I think one of the speakers mentioned, the applicant, about the access to the A449. Because I know from the highways report, there should be restrictions on the HGVs travelling south on the A449 through Penkridge. My understanding is the idea of this site, it has come in the emerging plan, is the desirability of it being adjacent to junction 13, and that the HGVs servicing the site would want to get straight on the M6. So I'm just wondering what controls would be in place to prevent HGVs going south on the A449 and to encourage them to come out of the site and to get them on the M6, which I think both the residents and the businesses that occupy this site will want them to be. Thanks.
That's a question to Simon, I presume. Simon. Yeah.
We've asked for this to be secured via Section 106. So we could do it legally, and through that mechanism, we could put in how that's going to be, the data is going to be gathered and collected. Because most of these places, they will have to book these vehicles in and out. Most logistics companies are run by the GPS, so we should be able to see. There's also might be a possibility, because as part of the West Midlands interchange, we've got to actually erect some traffic monitoring cameras to monitor the West Midlands HGVs. Don't know when that's going to be in place, but we're looking at erecting these cameras, so it will actually give us the identification of HGVs using that route. So then it's just about tying the information back to what it is and how we're going to enforce it and what we're going to do if there's a breach of anybody travelling. So they might be the only exemption to that. Will be any vehicles having to deliver within the Penkridge if they've got to travel that way for delivering. So whether they're dropping off at any of the shops or etc. down there. So from that point of view, we're trying to restrict, as we've done with things like, say, the West Midlands interchanges, is keeping the HGVs away from the residential areas of Penkridge.
Ellen wants to speak as well.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Yeah, it is the legal agreement that would secure that. So it was requested by Highways colleagues, and that's been anchored in the recommendation. So it is something that we would look to secure. It's legally binding, runs with the land, so we could make sure that that was actioned and is wholly enforceable.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Kelly.
Thank you. Just on 2 points, Chair, if I can, through you to Ellen or the other officer. Firstly, I've just been timed out. The 1 point I want to raise is the Grade 2 listed building. How is it the demonstrable effect regarding the Grade 2 listing building outweighs this development on the first point? And the travel plan, as Chris has made point to, is what guarantees are there regarding the vehicles and the workers, especially the workers building this site? Are there going to be a section for them to park their vehicles?
Ellen?
Yeah, thank you through you, Chair. I'll start with the highway stuff if that's okay. So yeah, there's a travel plan secured as well, which is separate to the routing plan. So that would be associated with future occupiers who are workers there. So that would make sure that sustainable transport methods are considered, and there's a sum of money associated with that. So that could be developed and brought forward once they're operational. We've got to be mindful this is an outline approval. So some of the detail when it comes to the actual comings and goings and the trips aren't known. Whilst we have got a parameters plan, we can work with that, but some of that finer detail will come out at reserved matter stage. But in terms of sorry, your first point's just gone right out of my head. Heritage, yes. So you'll see in the report that the balancing exercise has been undertaken by the officers are making the recommendation, and that there is acknowledged that there is less than substantial harm to the heritage asset. So all that is about is the way that the site is located within the proximity of the development area, with the red line area that you can see in front of you, how that is balanced in the harm of the development when weighed against the benefits. It's acknowledged that there is less than substantial harm there, so that harm needs to be balanced. It is obviously an issue for the decision maker where the weight is apportioned when it comes to harm, but it has been acknowledged in the officer report, and that's been added into the planning balance.
To come back.
Yes, please. The point I'm really emphasising and want to get across is these units will have intrusion of lights, because they'll be working early hours in the morning. What guarantees of light intrusion, noise mitigations, and also point of, as I say, biodiversity. Are the buildings going to have solar panels and stuff like that if it is agreed to pass?
Ellen.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, again, some of the matters that will be dealt with when we're looking at the scale, location, siting of the building, but BNG is secured in excess of 10%. That has to be secured. In terms of some of the other requirements like noise, you'll note there's some conditions with regard to background noise and further noise assessment that need to be carried out when we know the detail. So that links with a future reserved matters application. So that will be covered, as will lighting. Obviously, given the area that we're in, we'd want to make sure that that was not only sensitive to ecology matters, but also sensitive to neighbouring occupiers and buildings. So yeah, very much something that we are straying into the reserved matters and the detail there, but yes, certainly something that is a material matter. Thank you, Chair.
The last point for the highways, Chair, the splay for the access on the road off the 449. HGVs have a big turning angle. What is the actual splay the county are asserting to say it should be for that sort of access of vehicles?
Display, you mean in terms of the access usability by HGVs? There've been track runs doing, generally speaking, because the 449's that wide, the access itself, most industrial roads are built to 7.3 metres wide, and they'll have the radius will be such that it will accommodate HGV movements. It's pretty standard design that we use up and down any industrial estate, really, in terms of the access through into that site.
I understand the standard stuff, but HGVs are getting bigger. You know, they used to be 40 tonners, they're 44 tonners now, and they are a lot longer. There's some of them are 35 feet long and more, and you turning a trailer, which is a 23-foot trailer, onto a 449 on a 7-point-some odd metre angle. That means that Arctic's got to go on the other side of the lane.
If you check the design will accommodate those movements. So it won't need to go on to the other side of the road. And just going back to if it needs to go on the other side of the road, I'm not sure which side of the road you mean. Obviously, it's got to, if it's turning right, and it's got to cross. Oh, I see what you mean.
Can we move it on now? Because we're going backwards and forwards. Councillor Harper Wallace.
Thank you, Chair. So yeah, my first, I guess the context for my question now to the officers is around, I believe that the site is going to predetermine central elements of the emerging local plan and the employment strategy. And MPPF paragraph 50 to 51 confirms that we as a planning committee refusal can be justified prematurely where the development is so substantial that granting permission would undermine the planning process or that the plan is at an advanced stage. I think both of these conditions are met in this regard. There was a lot of comments around this site. Obviously we've gone to an inspector. The argument for whether our council has adequately answered those comments, I left one around the WMI and how there's unclaimed employment land there, right? So if there is unclaimed, then this site is not needed. So we still need to see what the inspector says here. And I think, we're worried at council and in the planning committee that we're going to accrue legal costs. I think there's probably a really good argument here, and we're solidly protected by the MPPF to reject on those grounds. So I guess my question to the opposites is, what are your opinions on that? What's our possibility to do that?
Do you want to outline or shall we go through an individual? Okay, so we'll answer it each individual because you've got 5 comments, haven't you? 5 points of refusal. Okay, we'll go through them one at a time. Thank you.
I'll start on the local plan side of things and prematurity. Given that there's quite a lot, I'm sure Pardy want to come in on the legal side of that, of what prematurity is, but ultimately that we've already determined an application this evening that's in a proposed allocation in the emerging plan. The last application was, so again, prematurity wasn't considered there, so we have to be very similar in this one. In terms of the local plan examination, obviously it's not for this committee to have the debate of what's going on in the local plan examination, but it is the council's position, and the evidence of this council that was supported by this council for submission was that there is a need for additional employment land. We're saying it's a certain level. A lot of the objectors are saying it should be far higher. What we all do accept, though, is that there is a need for additional employment land, and this is one of those proposed allocations, and it was the council's position that it was an acceptable one to go into the local plan. That's why it's under examination at the moment. Where the debate at examination is being held is around the amount of employment land that we should be providing, because we do not accept that we should count all of WMI for a lot of complex reasons. Because if we were to say, well, all of that site is ours, we need more housing for those workers to be there, because that's not our evidence base as to what our need is. So it's a very fine balance, which is what the examination is looking into at the moment. But it is the council's position in principle that this site is a suitable site, but that absolutely there is an economic need for new employment sites.
Do you want to come to?
Yeah, I guess given that it's so nuanced in the many complicated reasons, as you said, around, the employment, there's lots of contributing factors to this decision. Surely the prudent part here, like the last one, isn't as complicated because, that had been allocated in previous plans, and had been talked about and promoted about for quite some time. And the guidelines were very clear, and the parameters for why we needed that housing was very clear. I think here there's a level of ambiguity that I think we would still be covered, and just to at least see the what the inspector says about this site, because again, I think it's highly contentious, and you could make a lot of good arguments for and against. So I would potentially be seeking deferment, but I guess maybe from a legal position now, if a deferment was what are our options there?
Yes, Chair, I just wanted to actually make the point that in terms of the prematurity position, the threshold for actually refusing a planning application based upon the fact that it's premature is pretty high. And I think I do actually want to warn caution against that. There has to be some very strong, sound reasons as to why determining this application in advance of the local plan decisions is going to cause prejudice. Now, you're absolutely right. We've got a very uncertain situation, in terms of this allocation. There's been strong submissions in favour. There's been strong submissions against. So, this is an area for the inspector to actually determine. But the guidance actually stipulates that, in circumstances where the local plan is in preparation, And in this particular case, limited weight has been given. We have to deal with the application based upon current planning policies, which are clearly set out. So whilst I actually appreciate the point that you have made, I would actually guard caution in terms of using prematurity as a reason for refusal. We've noted your other 3 reasons. We can go through those, but as I said, understanding the concern. Without me reiterating the points, it's trying to meet that very strong threshold of demonstrating, showing the prejudice that will actually occur if a decision is made to the local plan process. I hope that helps.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess my point is clear. Like, I'm trying to make the point that I believe that by approving this application tonight, we are prejudicing, we're giving prejudice to the plan that site should be there, and so therefore our act tonight would prejudice the plan. Is the point I'm making, but I'm happy to move on. I guess I want to talk about failure to prioritise previously developed land, which is a NPPF policy that we're all aware of, and kind of what analysis has been done from the council in that regard.
Kelly.
Thank you, through you, Chair. As Councillor Harper-Wallace has been involved with the local plan preparation, obviously you'll be aware we have a significant evidence base underpinning the local plan. Economic wise, we have an economic development needs assessment that assesses not only the level of need that's required, but also what supply we've got and what the current demand may be. We also have a strategic housing and employment land availability assessment that looks at all of the potential housing and employment sites that have been put forward to us. All of those have been done in accordance with national requirements, so how those pieces of work have been done. And as you referred to previously about the debate at the local plan examination around what's the economic development needs assessment, is purely because there are a number of methodologies in which need can be calculated based on different forecasts and econometrics, and that's what the debate is about. But just to reiterate, the evidence base that we have is clear that we need additional employment land, and it was the council's position in principle that Junction 13 was a suitable proposal to go into the local plan for submission to government.
Great, thank you. Cool. So I guess emerging local plans and within the documentation itself, it says that the emerging local plan has minimal weight at present because it's emerging. That weight that is then applied in terms of unnecessary loss and best and most fertile land, and we know that in the NPPF requires us to make and recognise the intrinsic character and beauty of the countryside, verbatim from the NPPF. So given that obviously this site is built on best and most versatile land, it's around a load of grade 2 listed buildings, and it's in the countryside, I don't feel like we've necessarily mitigated the harm there for the benefit. So could officers talk more to that?
Go.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I think what we need to be mindful of is that because our adopted development plan is out of date, the presumption in favour of sustainable development is engaged, and we have to go then to the NPPF to have a look at what the policies there say. And I think it's really important that we reflect on section 6 of the NPPF on building a strong and competitive economy that is supportive of supporting economic growth where those proposals are acceptable. And that is a really important part of this case, because that's the sort of starting point for decision making. I think in terms of the planning balance exercise, the report covers that we recognise that there is an impact, we recognise that there is harm, but overall, in the spirit of economic growth, which is what the NPPF section 6 is asking us to look at, in the planning balance exercise, the harm can be mitigated through certain conditions, and actually the planning balance exercise says that overall this is an acceptable proposal.
Okay.
Could I just double check on the local plan? Sorry to put you on the spot on calling out policies, but on E30, does it say that the site is not needed to increase the district supply or meet our own objectively assessed needs? I keep seeing that in my searches that we're referencing that. Can you just confirm that's true? Sorry. I guess whilst that, can I ask another question? Just, it's a highways matter, so it will give them.
Go to the
give
next
them
question
times. Yeah. we'll
while
go
the
just
officers
whilst
look
the-
at that.
Yes,
Okay.
please, Chair. Thank you. So the MPPF paragraph 110 requires significant development to be focused in locations that can be made sustainable and sustainable modes of transport be provided. Given that you've got large HGVs going in and logistically going into the site, and the MPPF is trying to encourage like I think they say like multimodal walking, biking, for example. They're trying to promote that. Is there not a worry that there's kind of a conflict there where you've got large HGVs going through or nearby a small village whilst also trying to accommodate people walking and cycling? We've just talked about active transport links. Is there a concern that Highways has on that?
As we've just already said, there is a 106 to agree the routing strategy. So in terms of what you were saying about going through the village, there shouldn't be HGVs going through that village. They should all be going to and from the M6. In terms of your sustainable transport, etc., just there's various options available in terms of trying to, it's all aimed to reduce the single car occupancy. So in terms of things that you were saying earlier about car sharing is recognised in the NPPF as a sustainable form of transport. And on sites such as this, it's one of the most sort of effective way of getting those single uses down. So we've seen, for instance, on the I-54, a lot of them sites, you're looking at over 60% of the workforce car share. So it's made a massive impact in terms of the development. So just using the I-54 as an example, the original TA, the vehicle numbers in terms of actual workforce there, when we came to do phase 2, there was, I think it was just about 50% of what was actually predicted going into the site because of the travel plan and the use of car sharing. So it's not just about walking and cycling, it's about targeting what's going to be most effective. And I think sites such as this will be, like I say, car sharing.
You want to come back on that?
No, that's perfect.
Okay, so I'll go to the officers on that. Kelly.
Thank you very much, through you, Chair. I've found it's paragraph 6.46 of the publication plan that you were referring to, where it says that junction 13 wasn't specifically needed solely to meet the council's own employment needs, but was actually added to the portfolio because we needed additional plan flexibility. And bearing in mind there was employment land shortfalls across the region in the same way as that there is housing. And as we know from conversations about our local plan, obviously our contributions to shortfalls, both housing and employment, is a contentious matter for all of those involved. But ultimately, it was this council's position when we submitted that plan that we needed additional land in order to give us that contribution we could make towards shortfalls, and that junction 13, because of the reasons of the benefits of the site, the non-green belt location, was actually a welcome addition to the council's portfolio in order to assist with cross-boundary employment needs.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Harper-Wallis, I know you're scoping out reasons for refusal. I will come back to you, but before I come back to you, are there any other speakers on this issue? Councillor Adams.
I've just got probably an observation and a couple of questions. Sorry, I've only just started to speak.
Pull the microphone
Sorry.
closer. Yeah.
Okay.
Fair comment.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have you got, oh, I've just shut my computer now. Have you got a slide that shows you how the village is only tiny? Can you just show us where School Lane is and where the A449 is, and then motorway? So yeah, so that I'm just for the committee really, so they can see how close it is. So yeah. And School Lane. So it's obviously huge. That is only small, and that is a huge development, isn't it? Just at the back of them, and you've got the school there. So we talked earlier in the last application about school car park. You don't want highways, don't really want to put a school car park because of the pollution. So they're put in 40 places now. So that pollution will be nearby. And then you've got all the pollution from the warehouses, haven't you? So it isn't far. So where is the display coming out? Is that the A449? Where are the lorries going to come out?
Sorry, can you see my cursor? I'm not sure if that's visible on that screen.
And just can you just say again where the school is? So that is all very close. So the lorries are going to come in and out, and it is all very close.
The HGVs won't be using school lane,
No, they'll
the
use,
449.
yeah, but it's not far from it.
Oh, yeah, take your point. Yeah, there's school lane. I don't know
so
how well that's
that
showing
is-
up on the screen. And then the 449 there, and then the site access points is there.
So that is a concern, and I know it's a concern to the residents and the school. The other point, I know you have mentioned it, Kelly, and you've said why, but I've had residents say, why do we need some more warehouses? I'm aware that these are small to size. Why do we need some more warehouses when we've got those at WMI and those at Junction 14? Just sorry.
I'm just going to start, obviously, it's very challenging because just be cautious with the impacts on the local plan of decision making here, because obviously we're at examination. The council's position is that there is a significant need across our region, including South Staffordshire, for additional employment land. Our position is that what's included in the draft local plan is an appropriate employment portfolio supply, which includes part of WMI, but only some of it. And obviously ROF Featherstone, for example, and then this site at Junction 13, and the details of what the full employment supply can be seen in the document. Ultimately, in the same way as housing, there is a need for both housing and economic development. That's an accepted position across the whole country. So what we're saying is that this site, because it isn't big sheds, you know, whilst this is only an outline application, what we're talking about here is a mix of so very, very different to WMI, as the speaker said at the beginning. So it's adding to that portfolio, and ultimately we need to have a portfolio and a flexible portfolio to have a sound plan, and that's the position as to why Junction 13 is included in that. And it's the council's position that if we didn't have it, we might not have a sound plan, and that has obviously implications beyond employment. So
Thank you, Kelly. Just do we know, you probably don't know this now, the range of employment? Range, the depth of it, is it going to be high level jobs, low level jobs? Do we know that?
It's a variety of logistics and industrial, but the Endurant method that was mentioned at the beginning is that they own the building, they maintain the building, and we know from their past delivery at other sites that it will be a whole range of jobs. It's not just warehousing by any stretch. It's a whole, and that's what's included in the officer report, is the different types of jobs, the different benefits, and that's part of the case for it.
Okay, any more speakers? Councillor Kelly.
Just one clarification, Helen and Kelly, as you look to the south, near to School Lane, you've got the park area. Do we know the distance, would the officers know the distance of, because you've got very two close industrial units there that are going to be close to not only school and the church, what is the distance going to be? Because to me, having units that close, noise-wise, light-wise, sound-wise, especially if they're cold refrigeration companies, if there's a mitigated distance, then.
Ellen.
Thank you through you, Chair. No, there is no distance because we're not considering the building footprints at this point. This is obviously just the broad parameters plan. What we are looking at is the building heights, and that forms part of the environmental statement, and that is obviously set. But in terms of the footprint of the buildings and what they will ultimately be used for by the end user, when we've got the reserve matters applications. What I would say is things like these kind of high spec buildings, logistics, they're not normally noisy in terms of future occupiers, but that is something we can condition and control when the future applications come forward and we know what the occupiers are and what the likely kind of comings and goings and use of those particular units would be. Thank you, Chair.
Do we have any more speakers? Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Chair. It's probably more of a comment, really. I'm very conscious of the fact that yet again we're weighing up the loss of greenbelt and habitation, etc. with regard.
It's not Greenbelt, it's
Okay.
open country.
Okay, I stand corrected or sit corrected. And the application will bring much needed employment to the area and Staffordshire itself. I am concerned with regard to proximity to the school and the church with regard to noise and pollution. I really would like to get some sort of conversation going on that, please. Thank you.
Ellen.
Yeah, I can only reiterate what I've already said, really. We're not considering the location of the buildings themselves today, just the broad parameters of their heights. Noise is a material planning consideration. So when we are in the position where we can assess that, of course, that would be considered, an impact on residential amenity by way of light, pollution and noise would be considered. We just don't have that detail at this outline stage in order to be able to give that the full level of assessment. But rest assured, you know, at reserve matter stage, that would come into play and we could have that full assessment.
You want to come back? Yeah.
I'm just going to come back with one more, and do forgive me for this, Chair. I will say this. I just need to say it. I think the school is getting a bit of a punishment this evening, it's just a bit of a shame, really. I'm a former teacher, so I feel very strongly about this, but also the fact that we're losing this open countryside. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chapman. Any more speakers? Councillor Kelly.
So we're deciding access and height of the buildings tonight. Is that what you're saying?
Ellen.
It's an outline application for access only. So that's the only reserve matter, the only matter you are considering. Everything else is reserved, but anything covered within the environmental statement is also covered. So that gives us the broad parameters of things like building heights. So it's not a matter that's being considered. We've still got that up for discussion when the reserve matters come in, but there'll be a maximum height. Thank you, Chair.
And will that come back to committee? The reserve matter.
The reserve matters application, yeah, and obviously can be called into committee by any ward member.
It looks like there's no further speakers, so I'll go back to Councillor Harper Wallis. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so one of our policies is OS1, and it talks about downgrading public rights of way and how we try to avoid that. Obviously, this application does indeed do that. So I guess what are the mitigating factors that kind of help tilt the other way against that on this application?
Yeah, through you, Chair. Yeah, it's covered off in the report, but obviously we've got a couple of rights of way that pass over the site. We're very live to that, as is the applicant, as our county council, who are the people with the jurisdiction. You can't block, stop up or divert a public right of way. It is an offence to do so. There's legislation that sits alongside and contained within planning that we can make sure that that is dealt with. When we know the full details of the building locations, we'll be able to give that full consideration, and we would do that with county colleagues. But the protection that's in place at the moment is the informative that is noted as part of the recommendation to approve to members this evening, which doesn't allow any alterations, diversions or otherwise of the existing rights of way, and that would be given full and careful consideration at reserve matters stage. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Do you want to wind up now because there's no further speakers?
Are there any other questions from the? Yeah, let's look one more.
Sorry, I didn't see you indicate. Councillor Chapman.
Sorry, Chair. It's just another question. I wonder if the officers can tell me what is the population of Dunstan, and do we know how many houses are there? You're it.
Can you not speak out? I understand it's emotive for you. I understand it affects your village, but we need to go through due process.
Okay.
So please be quiet.
Chair, it's okay. 190 residents. Thank you.
Okay. back to you, councillor Harper Wallace. Do you want to speak?
Yeah, I'd like to put a motion forward for rejection. So yeah, I guess in kind of my rejection preamble, I think there's a lot of reasons, I guess emotional reasons for why we would want to reject today. And there's a lot of non-material planning concerns that we think are material in ourselves. So we do have to, unfortunately, go with what I think is the strongest reason. I think the strongest reason is prematurity, and I think we're prejudicing the emerging local plan. I think that's the strongest legal defence that this council has. And I think we should reject until the local plan has come through fruition. So my grounds for rejection will be on that, Chair. Thank you.
So your grounds are prematurity.
Prejudicing and affect. I can give you the exact wording
Okay.
because the MPPF references it. 2 seconds.
It needs precisely spelling out, yeah.
So given paragraph 50 to 51 of the MPPF, refusal can be justified based on prematurity where the development is so substantial, and I'm making the argument that the development is substantial and is referenced within our own local plan as being substantial, that it would undermine the plan process and or that the plan is in an advanced stage. Both of those conditions are met. It is an advanced stage and it does undermine the plan process.
I'm going to officers now for their opinion. Can we wait a moment while they exchange views? Thank you.
If I can just on one point of the council, paragraph 51 of the MPPF talks about refusal of planning permission on the grounds of prematurity will seldom be justified where a draft plan has yet to be submitted for examination before the end of the local planning authority, etc., etc. What it then goes on to say is where the planning permission is refused on grounds of prematurity, the local planning authority will need to indicate clearly how granting permission for the development concerned would prejudice the outcome of the plan making process. So what I'm trying to sort of say to you is that if this committee says it's refusing on grounds of prematurity, you're prejudicing yourselves who submitted the local plan. So you just need to be aware that ultimately that this site is in our local plan that's been submitted. So the implications are you need to be aware of that, and that's what I'm just sort of saying to you now, is that we know how important it is for us to get our local plan in place for so many reasons. Prematurity, you'd be prejudicing yourself if that. Pardo, I don't know if you want to come in on that.
No, Chair, I just wanted to echo the point that Kelly had made and also reiterate the legal advice that I did actually give earlier, that you indicated that this would be the sound legal reason for refusing this application. I have to say I disagree. The guidance, set out, in policy makes it plain that we do have to demonstrate, the prejudice in a very sort of strong, substantial way. Chair, I do have concerns in how we would actually substantiate this reason for refusal generally, but overall, one also has to actually consider the submissions that this council has actually made to the inspector for the allocation of this site in the plan, and the strong evidence that the council actually submitted in seeking to place this site, for employment use. So there's a lot of factors there which members do really need to consider, in respect of this reason, which I feel is unlikely to be substantiated on appeal. And I don't often actually say that I do have concerns, in relation to cost, but I really would guard and caution against substantiating, and as to how we will substantiate this reason for refusal.
Yeah. So the reasons for prejudice are by granting application here tonight, we are prejudicing the decision of what's the name? Investigator. What do they call them? The inspector, the planning inspector who is reviewing our site today, and we are effectively pushing forward the view that is more acceptable, even further acceptable. And I worry that we're prejudicing the real concerns that residents have raised and the material concerns that, the actual planning material concerns that the inspector will be thinking about when they make that decision. So yeah, I think that I can draw reasonable conclusion by us approving tonight. That would do that for the inspector. I think that's probably a sound reason.
So we need to move on now with a vote. Are you putting a reason for refusal forward?
Yeah.
So
yeah, that was
that's
me.
your proposal.
That's what.
Are you happy with the wording?
Officers have made their position that, clearly we're not happy with the wording, but, the decision making rests with the committee. If this motion has actually been put forward and it is seconded, that, clearly is a decision, for the committee. We are simply here just to advise.
You are entitled to put your reason for the refusal. Somebody else has come in now. Councillor.
Just a question for Kelly, just so that I understand it. We as councillors have made that decision to put the local plan forward. You're prejudicing is, or we'll be prejudiced. Can you explain that and what implications it has for us, please? Thank you.
This is quite hard to articulate, so I'll try my very best. I'm happy to come back on this, but obviously we are against adversity trying to get a local plan in place, which has been in production now for many years and has course corrected and changed as evidence has come along, whether that be MPPF changes, housing needs evidence, shortfalls of housing needs, economic needs. I mean, part of the reason for this being included in the plan was the West Midlands Strategic Employment Site study that was published last year, which we had to take into consideration to have a sound plan put in place in front of an inspector. This council endorsed that plan and then submitted it because it felt this was the appropriate plan based on our evidence that we've got that we support. That's what's now before the inspector. That's what officers are now defending, which is what we're facing adversity, because obviously there's a lot of objectors that are saying that both our housing and employment needs are not enough and they should be significantly higher. That's what we're doing. Yes, there are, objectors, residents, including this evening, that want it to be lower, but ultimately we know what we're being asked to do nationally is to deliver more housing and employment. I know that's not palatable, but that's the position we're in. Ultimately, if this application is refused this evening, the council is basically saying it doesn't agree with the local plan that's been submitted. That's what the inspector will see. So that then puts us in a difficult position that we said we supported this site and it was justified, but then the committee has said it's not justified. That will cause significant issues for the local plan, quite significant issues. So that's the so that by saying you're prejudicing it, you're prejudicing your decision that you took already to submit the local plan. By now saying you disagree with that decision, there's the prejudice. If I can, is that articulating it correctly?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not that I think the word prejudice was difficult for me to understand, but actually what you're saying is we've approved the plan and now we're not. And I understand all the reasons why we need to approve it, but actually we've approved this element in that, and really we're then a few of us going against what we said originally and agreed as a majority. Really.
I think members now have heard all the questions and
yeah.
arguments. No,
Please.
I'm coming to you. I think now we need to move to the vote. So you need to substantiate
I'm
now
going to
your
substantiate.
reason. That's what
I think there's a miscommunication between myself and the officers here. I'm not saying that the local plan is being prejudiced. What I'm saying is we're prejudicing the inspector's decision on the soundness of the site. So it's not necessarily that I'm saying it's bad or good or anything. I'm saying that by approving tonight, we're influencing the inspector's final decision, which is covered by paragraph 50 to 51. I'm not talking about our local plan. I'm talking about the planning process itself.
So advice from yourself.
I understand the distinction that you've made. What your officers were endeavouring to do is to ask you to expand the level of the prejudice. What actually prejudice is actually going to occur, given that refusal on grounds of prematurity must pass a very high threshold with a clear indication of what that prejudice is.
Okay. So put a proposal for refusal.
Okay, my proposal, sorry, to state again, my proposal for refusal is based on paragraph 50 to 51, which clearly dictates that. Sorry, I'm going to have to go back to the exact wording. Sorry, Chair. I want to make sure that it's 100% right. That by approving the application tonight, we are predetermining and undermining the planning process of the planning inspector on our local plan.
Okay. Is that acceptable as a proposal for refusal? Yeah, okay. No, I know. So do I have a seconder for that proposal for refusal? Do I have a seconder? No? In that case, without a seconder, the proposal isn't a sound one without a seconder. So without that, I have to go to the recommendation of officers is to approve this application. All those in favour of approval, please show. Yeah. All those against, please show. Any abstentions? That application is approved. Audience, can I thank you for your patience tonight? I know it's a motive for you, but thank you for not shouting out. It is appreciated. Members, I'm conscious we've gone for 2 hours. Do you want a comfort break? Yeah, I'll adjourn for 5 minutes for the comfort break. Thank you. Members, we've got people viewing this, so we need to crack on now because there's a lull in what we're deciding. So can we get into our seats? Is anybody missing? No. Need to crack on. Okay. Right, we go to the next application, which is 24/00477/FULM, and it's land to the north of Poolhouse Road, Wombourne. This is Imogen. Can you outline the application, please?
Thank you, Chairman. So this application is for 121 dwellings, public open space, allotments, sustainable urban drainage systems, and it's sited across 2 sites in Poolhouse Road in Wombourne. The sites have been safeguarded for housing within the council's site allocations document and are included within the emerging local plan. The site is separated by third-party land. The eastern site proposes 60 dwellings and the western site has 61 dwellings. The site will deliver 40% affordable housing, which results in 49 dwellings. The latest 5-year housing land supply position for the council from December 2024 states that a supply of 1.17 years can be demonstrated. As such, the tilted balance is engaged, and the council needs to ensure the delivery of dwellings in the most appropriate locations, especially in relation to sustainable development. So as these sites have been identified through the site allocations document and the emerging local plan, they are considered acceptable and sustainable locations for development. Wombourne is defined by Core Policy 1 as a main service village, and the sites are in walking distance to a range of facilities within Wombourne as well as nearby bus stops. This proposal secures an appropriate design and level of amenity for future occupiers and of the properties, along with existing dwellings surrounding the site. There are no objections from technical consultees, such as the lead local flood authority or the Highways Authority, who have recommended the application be approved subject to conditions. The proposal includes the provision of a footway link between the sites, which will ensure connectivity between the sites and the wider amenities. As you'll see from the update sheet, there has been a minor edits to the conditions and they have been agreed by the applicant. The application is recommended for approval subject to conditions and assigns Section 106 agreement to secure appropriate infrastructure, which includes the affordable housing, healthcare provision, improvements to the bus stops on Planks Lane, and a highways travel plan contribution and the on-site public open space. So just to take you through some of the pictures. So that's the view towards the eastern corner of the site with Clapgate Road on your right on that one. Thank you. So that's still stood in that eastern corner position towards Poolhouse Road towards the left. So that's the view from the western corner, southwestern corner of the site towards the east along Poolhouse Road. So that's a bit, the trees in the middle there is the third party land. And you've got the Medlands, sorry, which is sited to the right. So just set back from Poolhouse Road, which is on the left. So this is a picture of the third party land. So you've got a dwelling on the left and then commercial properties in the middle. So then this is the layout. So the red squares on the site on the plan there are the application sites. So there's like the western parcel and the eastern parcel with a third party land in the middle. And then the yellow square on also shape on the west is another application. So there's a live plan application for 93 dwellings positioned there, which is under consideration at the council at the moment, but that's not yet at committee. Next slide, please. Yeah, that's just the site location plan submitted with the application. And there's an indication of the layout. So you can see the dwellings on the eastern site, which that's bound by dwellings on the east and south. The middle section is the third party land. The western site, the dwellings are mainly on the eastern parcel, and then the public open space and allotments and sustainable urban drainage systems are on the western parcel. That is predominantly due to the pylons and overhead lines that run across that part of the site. And then we've got some street scene drawings there. So yeah, so the application is recommended for approval subject to conditions and assigned section 106. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Imogen. We don't have anybody speaking against this application, but we have got a speaker for the application, which is Mr. Tom Higgins. Can you go to the lectern, please? And you have 5 minutes, Mr. Higgins. Thank you.
Thank you. Although I support this development and hope our younger residents will be able to afford some of the new homes instead of moving out of the village, I do have a couple of concerns. A map on page 5 of the Construction and Environmental Management Plan shows construction site traffic approaching from 2 directions. The route along School Road and Downsdale Road, which is in Womburn North, joins Poorhouse Road, which is in Womburn South Ward. This will result in HGVs carrying concrete, bricks and other builder materials driving past 3 schools. On page 232 of tonight's report, planning condition 4 states, no phase of the development shall take place until a construction management plan has been submitted to and approved in writing by the local planning authority. I respectfully ask that condition 4 be amended to include the provision that before such approval is given, Womburn North councillors be consulted. They will be acutely aware of traffic issues along the proposed construction route running through their patch. My second concern relates to public transport. One of the 3 golden rules in the revised NPPF specifies that development proposals must include plans for improving local infrastructure, and new housing projects should come with commitments to enhance transport links to support the increased population and activity in the area, recognising that local leaders are best placed to identify the infrastructure that their community needs. I believe paragraphs 109 to 118 of the NPPF are relevant to this situation. The Council produced a climate change strategy in 2020 with aims such as taking action to protect the environment for future generations and reducing car use by promoting car sharing and public transport plans. At a pre-application meeting in February 2021, attended by 5 planning officers, the County Highways Officer in attendance indicated policy requirements are that bus stops should be located no more than 350 metres from the furthest house. Paragraph 2.9 of Active Travel England Standing Advice Note dated June 2024 states, most buildings within the application site should be within 400 metres of a high frequency bus stop. Pedestrian routes should be safe, direct and accessible for people of all abilities. In item 10 on page 222 of tonight's report, there's a comment. The nearest bus stops are in Planks Lane, approximately 700 metres from the site. While this distance slightly exceeds the County Council's recommended maximum walking distance to public transport, it is still considered acceptable. To whom? The report also states the applicant explored the potential to reroute the existing bus service to extend to the development. However, the current timetables have no flexibility to accommodate a diversion. Early this year, a process commenced which will see West Midlands Combined Authority taking over control of running bus services through the area. They will be deciding routes and fares. Item 6 on page 202 of the report is a comment from Womburn Parish Council, who are local leaders, made up of 15 members, 6 of whom are also district councillors, calling for a new feasibility study to be conducted with a view to introducing a bus service for the area to encourage sustainable travel. I therefore respectfully request a further condition be included to require the developer to liaise with appropriate authorities with a view to providing a much needed bus service in this area. So members, during your debate, think of hundreds of HGVs travelling past 3 schools. And also imagine yourself with 2 bags of shopping walking 700 metres from a bus stop. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Higgins. Next, we have the applicant speaking, and the applicant is Stuart Wells from Lovell Homes. You also have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you, members of this committee. This application relates to 2 parcels of land to the north of Poolhouse Road within the sustainable settlement of Womben, a Tier 1 settlement. Both parcels represent safeguarded land to meet longer-term housing development needs as identified within the Council's site allocations document adopted in 2018. The parcels were fully considered by an independent planning inspector through examination in public and found sound. The inspector concluded the safeguarded land designation was justified, effective and soundly based. Both parcels also have the benefit of being identified as a housing allocation for 144 homes in the emerging local plan that is currently subject to examination. The principle of residential developments has therefore been firmly established. The proposal for 121 homes represents a reduced level of development in comparison to the emerging local plan, and this is due to the presence of overhead electricity lines on the western parcel. The scheme has been designed to meet all the site-specific requirements identified through the emerging plan and to adhere to current development plan policies, including the provision of 40% affordable homes. Lovell Homes has worked collaboratively with council officers over the last year and a half and listened carefully to the views of consultees and the local community in amending the scheme, including those of Womben Parish Council, County Highways and the Lead Local Flood Authority. The proposal includes off-site highway improvements, including the requested reduction in speed limit to Poolhouse Road, footpaths to the north side of Poolhouse Road, speed control build-outs, pedestrian crossings, and improvements to the Bridge North Road junction through signalisation. Improvements to existing bus stops are also proposed. The green infrastructure strategy includes the provision of allotments to serve Womben, a new locally equipped area of play, and a level of amenity green space in excess of current and future council standards. The scheme has been sensitively designed to protect existing trees and hedgerows and to provide new planting and habitat creation. Proposed homes meet national space standards and provide a mix to reflect local need. 10% of all homes across all tenures are designed to meet the needs of older people. 40% of all homes are provided as affordable housing, and of that 50% will be social rented and 50% shared ownership. These will be provided within small clusters and designed to be tenure blind. Whilst the housing officer has criticised the location of a small number of affordable homes for being in the worst part of the site, this view is subjective and fails to recognise that there will also be open market properties in the worst part of the site as well. Each street has been designed to contain a variety of tenures with affordable homes located in a variety of different locations, including those opposite the significant newer public open space, which overlooks open countryside to the north, which is subjectively the best part of the site. The significant benefits of the provision of 49 affordable homes and market homes to meet the significant housing shortfall in the district, provision of an allotment facility to serve the wider community, and off-site highways improvements significantly outweigh any identified harms. It is therefore respectfully requested that your officer's professional view, including conclusions on planning balance, is fully considered and planning permission granted, subject to the conditions and Section 106 heads of terms as set out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wells. Right, members, we don't have any local members tonight to speak first, so it's over to you. Anybody want to speak on this? Councillor Burnett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can we have a slide put up showing the location of the 3 schools, or just point it out, please?
They're not in the immediate vicinity, so they're not available on that plan.
Does that answer your question?
The previous speaker, the earlier speaker, spoke about the traffic, construction traffic going past 3 schools. Now, surely there should have been a construction plan that wouldn't allow that. Am I correct?
Yeah, through you, Chair. So there has one been submitted and there's going to be another one as part of the condition. So as the speaker mentioned, they wanted the condition to be reworded so that local members could get their input on it. But that condition has been recommended by the Highways Authority as the professionals. So we will be consulting them on that condition, which is what the standard practice is. So there is the condition number 4 is the one for the construction traffic management plan.
Any more speakers? Councillor David.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As this is safeguarded land, it was on the SAD document adopted some time ago. Surely if we were to refuse this application, we're going back to what we discussed before. We're going to prejudice our local plan application, aren't we? So I don't think there's any option for us personally that we have to look positively at it.
That's for the record. Do you want to comment on
Yes,
that?
please.
Okay, Kelly.
Thank you, through you, Chair. This is different in the sense it's a full application, so there are details. What was the concern with the previous application is that it was an outline application, which is the principle of development, and the principle of development is in the local plan. This here, yes, it is a safeguard land site, you're absolutely correct on that, but there are more details in this application that may need to be considered, that, you know, in terms of the planning balance exercise, which is what we're here to talk about. I would say as well, in terms of some of the more high level, you know, the strategic location of this site and its proximity to bus stops, for example, that is a principal issue that was considered in the site allocations document and considered to be acceptable for it to be removed from the green belt in the first place. So there is that kind of, you know, there's a bit of both is what I would say. There's a bit of local plan that's already been considered, but a full application has a lot more detail for you to consider.
Any more speakers? Councillor Chapman.
Yes, I did live in Wombourne many years ago, so I'm quite familiar with the area. Yes, it was in the SAD. I do know that this is it's within walking distance of bus stops, so it isn't as horrific as one might think. But I am concerned about the lorries going past the schools. That is a concern that Councillor Burnett has brought up as well. So I would stress that. Okay, thank you.
It's in the conditions, I'm told. Okay. Any more speakers? Councillor Kelly.
On the element as the speaker, which was for but made these references, does the Equality Act come into this? Is it affected in any way? Because as it states, it says within 350 metres, and if the farthest property for a disabled person wasn't able to get that, is the Equality Act 2010 affected into corporation?
Not with regards to any specifics, no, because obviously it's a site that's been considered in terms of the principle for development and the location of the bus stops, sustainability, access to alternative methods of transport is all considered under that. And obviously any planning decision that we make considers the Human Rights Act. So I don't think there's any specifics when it comes to the Equalities Act. Clearly, the way that layout is formed, there would be some decisions in terms of occupiers purchasing certain properties and their specific needs, but there's certainly a lot of variety within the site in terms of where your property would be located, so no specific concerns in that regard.
Okay, any more speakers? No, so I'm going to the vote. You know the recommendation is for approval. All those in favour, please show. That's unanimous. Thank you. That application is approved. Thank you. We now move to item 5, which is the planning performance report. Is that you, Kelly? No. Is that Helen? No. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. No specific updates in terms of central government procedure or training or anything else coming out of central government that needs to be flagged with members. Just to say that our new starters have bedded into the team, been with us since the 1st of September, and just to push that we've obviously started apprentice schemes. So we're looking to get younger members into the workforce, which so far has been received positively. Do want to mention the training that was undertaken yesterday evening. Obviously,